All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody is excited to join us in this session. We are very privileged to have Matthew Tan from UiPath, who is taking care of the sales engineering team in Southeast Asia for UiPath. Matthew has actually spent about the last 4 years with UiPath, and he has over 20 years of experience in the industry itself. So to this afternoon itself, we are very, very fortunate to have Matthew to share a little bit more on end-to-end automation, a game changer for improving workforce efficiency. So let's hear from Matthew what we can learn from that. Matthew, over to you.
Thank you, John.
No
Good
worries.
afternoon, everyone. It is uh, my honor and pleasure to be presenting to everyone today, and I thank the Cybiant team for inviting you, iPath, to speak in today's event, and hopefully all of you are having a wonderful day, learning, and hope I can impart more sort of knowledge on automation as we move through this session. And again, if you have any questions, make sure you post them in the Q&A panel. And at the same time, if you click on the handouts button, a copy of my deck is available there for download as well. So yeah, let's get right to it. So to those who do not know who UiPath is, our company is an automation provider. We started our business in 2005, founded in Romania, dealing with screen scraping capability. Our founder was an ex Microsoft engineer. His name is Daniel Dinis. And in from 2005 to 2013, he was actually developing libraries, which he sold to other companies to perform screen scraping. But in 2013, he stumbled upon the capability called computer vision and developed UI automation capabilities, which became the RPA platform that a lot of our customers know and love today. And through the years, we've had a series of innovation. In 2017, we had an enterprise grade product that we can sell to the market. And we added additional capabilities like artificial intelligence, process mining, uh, citizen development capabilities. We also uh, innovated and push our services up to the cloud so that we can offer our platform in a sort of software as a service fashion. And in 2001, we became a public company. We are publicly listed in the New York Stock Exchange. And we're fortunate to be in a leadership position, as evidenced by a lot of the analyst reports that are released by companies like Gartner, Forrester, Everest. And today, we provide what we call a business automation platform. Of course, our RPA capabilities are still very much alive and very much part of our platform, but we now provide a lot more capabilities to help our customers automate end to end. Help you automate the smallest of tasks to automating multi-department, multi-function processes, right? So we are a global company. We are headquartered in New York City. We moved our headquarters from Bucharest to New York City prior to us going public to prepare for, I guess, the IPO. But we're present all over the world. We have our home base here in Singapore for Southeast Asia. But at the same time, we do have representatives across different countries in Southeast Asia that support our customers. It's always good to have local presence and have people who speak the language, understand the culture, because automation is really not something you install and it runs. There has to be, a huge cultural shift, and our teams on the ground are there to support our customers. So hopefully, we'll get a chance to work together if we're not working together yet. So I'd like to again get started with sort of the theme of how to make automation a game changer, right? And I'd like to start that discussion by looking at, the four strategic trends that we see in automation. The first is really the shift from looking at automation as a tool, because now we see automation as a way of operating and the way of innovating. A lot of companies now look at how they can leverage automation to be able to go to market faster. to be able to uh, release products and services in a much more timely manner, right? Gone are the days where the focus is primarily on sort of man hour reduction, right? Where a lot of companies now are looking at automation as a way to differentiate. And second is all around uh, customer outcomes. Customer outcomes have shifted from being tactical to looking at how automation can be leveraged to transform the business, right? Because we've seen a lot of you know departments, especially in finance, who are typically the first to embrace automation. They look at automation as a way to just eliminate manual processes, automate the data entry of invoices, automate the data entry of orders. But as the capability of automation matures, a lot of companies are now looking at how do we transform our business using automation? How do we and the KPIs that they're looking at is no longer how many hours, man hours are we saving, but they're now looking at what the KPIs, like how do we improve our customer satisfaction score, how do we improve our net promoter score, how do we increase our revenue, um, how do we gain market share. So these are again what we've seen as a trend, which is the outcome that customers expect from automation is shifting. And automation is no longer a sort of a discretionary spend, right? We see more and more enterprises looking at automation as a more of a strategic investment. So gone are the days where companies would look at, okay, how much do we need to budget this year, next year, the following year for automation? They look at what capability do we need to put in place, and the C-level execs are now investing in multi-year programs, right? Again, because automation is becoming a way to operate and innovate outcomes, they're looking for more transformational outcomes, and hence the investments that companies make on automation also has to transform or shift to more of a discretionary to really strategic spend. And we're seeing more and more companies that are now providing automation platform as opposed to you know uh, um, as opposed to point products, right? And you see companies like Microsoft with their Power Platform, companies like ServiceNow with their BPM, ITBM, ITSM capabilities sort of merging into a platform, and they're adding automation capabilities as well. So these are some of the things that we've noticed. And UiPath, of course, has also um, been innovating through the years to move from standard RPA capabilities into having a business automation platform. So as I mentioned, in 2017, we had this, RPA capability, which was enterprise grade. But 5 years on, we've added a lot of capabilities. RPA is still at the heart of our platform, but we've added a lot of capabilities around process and task mining, around AI, around intelligent document processing, around managing human and robotic work, right? And at the same time, of course, a lot of people think about RPA as, oh, let's screen scrape, automate clicking and typing. But a lot of the automation can also be performed via APIs, right? Like to provision a VM in AWS or an EC2 instance. You can use the UI, of course, to uh, click and fill out forms and submit your request for a VM, but the reality is those actions can also be performed through APIs. So a lot of the newer capabilities that we've introduced into our business automation platform actually automate via APIs, because APIs are a lot more resilient. They're faster compared to automating clicking and typing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And what we have today is really a platform that has three main capabilities. And I'm from UiPath, so of course my slides are from UiPath. But even if you're using a different technology to automate your business, I'd like you to look at this sort of platform diagram as capability a list of capability that you need to have a successful automation program. So the first one being the ability to discover or uncover automation opportunities. How do we leverage the data that we have in our ERP systems, our CRM systems? How do we understand how our users interact with their business applications? How do we extract data from communications like chat messages or email? A- And how do we encourage our employees to actually submit automation ideas? Discovery is a capability that you need to have, because the only way to sustain an automation program is to have a very healthy pipeline of automation ideas. And as you um, invest in automating those processes, you need to make sure that you're also automating the high value ideas, those that will give you the best bang for the buck, or the ones that will have the highest ROI. So you need to have this formal process intake capability, where, again, like I said, you're leveraging data that's locked in your ERP, CRM systems, the interactions that your users are having with different business applications, extracting automation ideas as well from unstructured information like chat messages and emails. And at the same time, it's the people that you have that understand your business and have ideas in terms of how to automate their manual processes. So again, have that ability to discover and uncover automation opportunities. The second capability is really to automate, and hopefully, the automating of your process is something that takes weeks instead of months or years. And a lot of the RPA vendors, of course, have a low code development platform for building automation, including us. And like I mentioned earlier, how do you automate? By leveraging APIs. But if APIs aren't available, then you utilize UI automation, because, as you know, there's still plenty a lot of legacy applications like that enterprises still use. And the only way, let's say, to post an invoice is via the user interface. There's no API. So hence we need a combination of really good UI automation capabilities and API automation capabilities. We need to have the ability to fully orchestrate a process. Because if you look at automating a given process, let's say there's a step that will have to remain manual because it requires someone to make a judgment, right? But how do I orchestrate work that's done by a robot versus work that's done by a human, and ensure that there's seamless handoff between humans and robots? So again, the ability to orchestrate the overall end-to-end process. And of course, as you know, some of the presentations earlier today spoke about the need to extract data from unstructured sources like contracts, annual reports, or semi-structured documents like invoices, purchase orders, receipts. So when you automate a process, look at whether your process uses a document as an input. If it does, chances are you need intelligent document processing capabilities as well. So intelligent document processing means having the ability to perform an OCR on a scanned document, having the ability to extract data from those documents using AI and machine learning, right? And lastly, of course, once you've automated a lot of the manual business rules driven processes, you can start looking at automating processes that require uh, some decision making. And if you have good data about your customers, about your business, chances are is you can create your own machine learning models that you can use to maybe either approve, reject, an expense report, or approve, reject a claim if you're an insurance provider. So again, leveraging the innovations that are happening in the AI and ML space. And lastly, you need the ability to operate your automation program, right? Having the ability to analyze the success and failure of your automation, understand the time savings that you're generating, understand the top line and bottom line benefits that are being provided by your automation program, the ability to continuously test your automation to ensure that they continue to work, and of course, govern the whole automation program, sort of establishing the do's and don'ts, and of course, the ability to decide how to deploy your automation platform, whether on prem or on the cloud. So again, this is our business automation platform, but I'd like you to look at this as capabilities that you need to have to run an effective automation program. And down below, because we don't want to exclude your process and your people, right? Because having a platform is not good enough. You need to involve your people. You need to have a really good understanding of your process to, to again drive an effective automation program. So what I'll do is just go through each of these areas very, very quickly, just to give you an understanding of, again, the capabilities that you need to have. Let's say, in this case, in the area of discovery, right? So when we talk about discovery, one of the sources for identifying automation opportunities is again in the data that's locked in your ERP and CRM systems, right? How do we leverage the data in your ERP, let's say for the procure to pay process or order to cash process? Or if you're using ServiceNow or any other IT service management tool, how do we leverage the data that we have around incident management, around change management, service request, and get a better understanding of how that process works and what parts of the process could benefit from automation. So with process discovery, we're mining data from your ERP system, from your CRM, from your ITSM to identify uh, parts of the process that could be automated. We can also identify processes to automate by mining information about how users interact with business applications. Like, for example, by using task mining, you can detect activities such as a person opening an Excel and then opening SAP as an example, and then doing Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. And this, if this person does this 50 times a day, and there are 10 other people that do the same thing, then this activity becomes a really suitable automation candidate, right? And the last bit there is, let's not forget that we don't necessarily need to use process mining and task mining to understand what to automate, because our employees will tell us what's manual and repetitive in their line of work. So let's make sure that we are also capturing the ideas that are coming from our employees. And this is really how the various products of UiPath work together. As I mentioned, process mining will analyze data from business applications. Task mining will analyze how users interact with their business applications. And these could be sources for automation opportunities. But at the same time, let's crowdsource for automation ideas from our employees. And all of these automation ideas are documented in a solution called Automation Hub. I'd like to look at Automation Hub as the ERP for your automation program, because it's important to also have a single place where you have the list of all the automation opportunities that you have, a single place where you perform assessment of whether an automation idea is a good idea or a bad idea. Again, good idea means automation feasibility is high, meaning based on how the process is done today, it's easy to automate. And the potential as well is that, what's the potential savings? What's the potential ROI? Are we hitting one of our KPIs around increasing revenue, reducing costs, minimizing risk? So by using Automation Hub, we can perform those assessments and start prioritizing what automation ideas make it to development and then eventually into production, right? So like I said, UiPath does have the capabilities around the ability to discover. And just a little bit more about Automation Hub. Again, it's a single place. It's actually a web application where every employee can log in and submit ideas. And it's also the tool that your Center of Excellence or your RPA team can use to assess and track the progress of an idea from inception all the way to when that automation is in production. And lastly, it also has a capability we call automation store, because the reality is if you are able to think of an automation, you publish that automation into automation store, there's a good chance that other members in your company could leverage that same automation, right? Like I'll give you a sort of a personal example. At the start of COVID, we transitioned from face-to-face training for our partners to a virtual training. And because it was virtual, we were able to invite a lot more people to participate in the training. So after we've delivered the training, I had to issue close to 70 certificates, because that's what students would expect after they attend training, is that they receive a certificate. So I built a bot to help me issue basically a certificate that has the name of the training, the dates of the training, signed by myself and our partner manager, and then emailed to the participants of the training. So I created the bot, completed it within half an hour, because it's a sort of all Microsoft Office based, PowerPoint, Outlook, and the conversion of the PowerPoint to PDF before emailing out is all built into our UiPath Studio. But I was able to save myself, probably an hour or so by building an automation for that one-time activity. But because, in fact, a lot of other employees in our company provide training to partners and our customers, they benefited as well from the automation that I built. Because again, it's all about building automation also that can be reused by others. And again, to cut the long story short, automation store is there to allow you to distribute the automations that can be reused by others. So that's again part of the capability of the solution we call Automation Hub. So after talking about discovery, let's move on to uh, automation, or the automation phase. And we believe that every employee can participate. We, of course, don't think that every employee can become a developer, but definitely every employee could leverage automation during parts of their day to eliminate again a lot of the repetitive manual and save themselves some time so that they can focus on higher value activities. Or for some of us, maybe automation can help us knock off from work on time, rather than spending additional hours of overtime to complete our work. So it's about automation for everyone. We have RPA developers, typically highly skilled developers who are very focused on building automation. We'd like to, of course, encourage companies to also have a citizen developer program. It's a program where the developers are coming from the business units, like maybe a person from finance who is upskilled to build their own automation for their own use or for the use of their team. A person from HR, a person from legal, or also, of course, people from IT, right? Because if I'm a system admin or a network admin or a database administrator, how do I automate a lot of the work that I need to do, right? So we like to advocate a citizen developer program as well, because this allows an enterprise to really leverage automation and make it available to every person and potentially increase overall productivity. With UiPath, we have two types of development platform. We have Studio and Studio X. Studio X is primarily meant for, again, the less technical people, people typically who do not have a programming background, because it's a low code environment for building automation. But we also have Studio, which is meant for automating, you know, simple to high complexity type of processes. Our Studio typically requires someone to have maybe a bit of programming background, but it's also possible to upskill yourselves to become a professional RPA developer if you have interest, and you can set aside time to really learn how to build automation the proper way, with exception handling and so on. So Studio, even though it's meant for professional RPA developers, it's also a quite an easy solution to use. It's a drag and drop, low code type of developing automation. But Studio X is a lot more simplified. It's very, very good for automating, especially around the Microsoft Office suite, like you're um, downloading an email from Outlook, uh, and then let's say opening an attachment, let's say an Excel file, and then performing data entry into an application. My example earlier of using a PowerPoint template to create a training certificate, converting it into PDF, and then sending it out via email was built on StudioX. As I said, it took me 30 minutes to build that automation. Um, but at the same time, I was saying earlier that it's important to automate um, using the best approach, right? And fortunately, UiPath is able to combine sort of the best of both worlds. The ability to automate using user interfaces. We have, I would say, the best capability for automating typing and clicking activities on applications. We typically support most applications as long as you can interact with an application using your keyboard and mouse. Our robots can also interface with those applications. But if there are APIs available, um, UiPath can also automate processes through APIs, which we feel is a more robust, faster, and again, more scalable way of developing automation. So leverage APIs whenever possible. But the good thing is you can combine them both. If you have, let's say, an automation that spans across multiple applications, those that you can only automate via the UI, or applications that you can automate via APIs, you can actually combine them all into a single workflow. The ability also to, again, have the intelligent document processing capability is important because a lot of the processes, let's say in accounts payable, requires extraction of data from documents like invoices, right? And as we all know, invoices don't look the same because every vendor will have their own format. But then how do you build automation for, let's say, a company that has 5,000 suppliers? They might have to process invoices with 5,000 different formats. So with intelligent document processing, again, we apply AI and ML to automate the extraction of data from semi-structured documents like invoices. But progressively, we also have capabilities around um, extracting data from unstructured documents like contracts and annual reports and so on, right? So if you have document processing requirements, it's time to look at intelligent document processing capability to allow you to automate the upstream activity of, let's say, preparing the documents, automate the extraction, and automating the downstream activity of encoding the extracted data into applications. So this is definitely a maturing capability. There's also the ability to apply AI and ML to unstructured content like emails, right? The ability to use uh, ML models like text classification, semantic similarity to understand the intent of the email, to use sentiment analysis to understand whether the email is a compliment or a complaint, also understand the level of urgency of that email, the ability to also extract certain data from the email using what we call custom name entity recognition or NER. So let's say someone sends an email, it's 2 paragraphs long, but the ID number of the person is there, the address, the phone number is there, but they could be in different places in the email. Using custom NER, we do have the ability to automate the extraction of those key data points as well, right? So, and of course, at the end of the day, it's about being able to demonstrate the capability, allow a person to validate whether the ML model has extracted the data properly, and so on and so forth. So let's move on to the last bit in my presentation, which is around the operate part. It's important to manage your automation program well and ensure that you're able to create the foundation for sort of an enterprise grade automation capability. So the most important aspect of operate is really the ability to showcase the success of your automation program. A lot of our customers have internal automation portal or websites that they build using tools like SharePoint, for example, to let employees know about what processes have already been automated and potentially also include things like the return of investment, how much time savings, how much additional revenue, how much cost has been saved, and so on and so forth. And our customers also create newsletter to advertise again the success of the automation program and to encourage more participation. And our customers would also hold events like quarterly business review or town hall where they showcase some of the high value automation that's been put into production. Again, the whole intent is to encourage more people to participate, submit ideas, and maybe become a citizen developer, right? So again, showcasing success is very, very important. Um, and we also have in UiPath a tool that allows us to, again, showcase the success of your automation program by showing statistics like time savings, money savings, success rates of your automation, again, to ensure that we're demonstrating value to the business, because the only way you can get additional funding for your automation program is to demonstrate success. And that's done through a tool called UiPath Insights. It's also important to continuously test your automation because processes change, systems change. So, what if I built an automation that interfaces with SAP and all of a sudden the automation doesn't work because overnight the SAP has been upgraded and now all the buttons and fields look very, very different. So the idea here is to make sure that you have your automation being tested on a regular basis in the test environment so that if there are certain changes that are made to your application in the test environment, you'll immediately be notified that your automation no longer works. So now you can start refactoring your automation so that it works well with the new version before that new version of the app hits production. Right. So again, it's important when you're operating your automation that you continuously test your automation, but at the same time, the applications that those automation rely on. It's also important to have good governance and control. So when in UiPath, our approach is to have preventative controls as well as detective controls. Preventative is really around how do we make sure that people follow best practice. Best practices like do not hard code a password in your automation workflow. Right? That's kind of common sense, because if someone opens that automation workflow, then they might get access to the password of the person that developed that automation, right? So again, no hard coding, follow certain business practices around development, how to properly handle exceptions and so on, right? And at the same time, we look at how to detect things like runaway bots that continue to run for hours and hours and doesn't stop, right? Or bots that fail, understand why it failed, right? And at the end of the day, of course, it's really giving you an idea of what bots are or what automation is frequently executed, what automation is frequently failing, so that you can properly plan to address those issues. And then we also have built-in code scanning and code review capabilities, again, to ensure that people are following best practices. And again, this is a very important part, especially if you have not just professional developers, but also citizen developers building automation, to have a proper code review, code scanning steps before those automation are published into production. And lastly, it's all about picking the right deployment approach. With UiPath, you can deploy your automation platform to the cloud, or you can also self-host it if you want. Self-hosting for UiPath, we have the ability for you to deploy our platform in, Kubernetes clusters, have the services running in containers, so that as and when you want to adopt a new capability, you have an instant on experience, which is very similar to our cloud platform, because the whole point of having your automation platform, let's say, run on UiPath Cloud is instant on. If you need intelligent document processing capabilities, we can immediately switch on that feature. No need to install anything, no need to deploy servers, VMs into your data center or on your AWS or Azure. But we understand that there are certain companies like banks, insurance providers, governments that have not yet approved deployment of applications to the cloud, so they can also self-host our platform. Yeah. I know I spoke a lot about again capabilities that you wanna make sure you have in your automation program, and of course I spoke a lot about the UiPath capabilities as well. But given the limited amount of time that we have today, I just like encourage you all to leverage the learning resources that we have in UiPath. We have an online academy where you can get training, self-paced training for free. As long as you have a valid email address, you can sign up for an account in academy.uipath.com. We also have a very active forum where you can, uh, you know, engage with like-minded individuals, automation experts, and your peers in the industry to again further the development of your automation program. Of course, you can also sign up for a trial using the link specified there. Uh, look for best practice documents available in our website, and again leverage the documentation that we have to ensure that you're learning more about UiPath capabilities. All right. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for your participation in this session. And I'd like to open the floor now for questions, if any.
Thank you, Matthew. I think that was a very, very heavy on what UiPath is all about. And we do have a few questions. Allow me to read them out. Let me just
Sure.
project for our users as well. So I'm not sure did I don't think we've covered this. And so one of our users or participants here today is asking, do we have any use case involving NLP? So I presume NLP means natural language
Um,
processing, right?
yeah.
That we can use to do automation. Could you share a little bit more on that, Matthew?
Yeah, definitely. I think again, I'd like to not just talk about UiPath, but overall what I see in the market
Yes.
today. A really
Yep.
good use of NLP is in the email uh, processing capability that I mentioned earlier. Because
Mm,
again, emails are unstructured.
right.
Of course, for us humans, it's easy to read an email and then understand, oh, this person has a request. Oh, it's about password reset. And
Right.
okay, the username is here. So therefore, I know which person is requesting for a password reset. But it's not true for robots. Yeah,
Mm,
robots don't have the ability to understand the intent. It doesn't have the ability to extract data from those emails. And NLP is a really good technology to leverage to understand intent. And there are associated capabilities, like I mentioned, text classification, semantic
right.
similarity, that can be
Okay.
leveraged to really create that automation that you can use to process emails. And it's a really big use case, I would say, for a lot of companies, especially B2C,
Mhm.
right? Where
Yep.
they receive thousands of emails on a daily basis. So NLP is a really good capability, and one application is on AI.
Right. Mm.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Email
Mm,
AI. Mhm.
right. Thanks for that, Matthew. I think that helps put things a little bit crystal clear. I do have another interesting question. I think you. So the question is, how can you share the best way to set up a governance for automation within our organization? So I presume the person who's asking this question has already embarked on the journey of having, say, some citizen developers. Now, I think
Mhm.
they are a little bit concerned. How do
Mhm.
we ensure governance is actually followed? I think in your
Yeah.
example, you did share like don't hard code the password, all those kind of thing, right? So how can we actually get this going? What is your suggestion here?
Sure. So of course, it's always important to start with sort of rules and policies whenever you have a citizen development program. First is on onboarding citizen devs, right? What qualifications does someone need to have to become a citizen dev? What trainings
Mm,
do they want to go that you want them to go through and get certified on before they become a citizen dev? It's always
Right.
important to sort of set a guideline in terms of how you become a citizen dev. The only time they receive a license to use the software that you're using for automation is when they pass all these prerequisites. And
Right. So
second,
there is a process, right, to
exactly,
do
it's
that, right?
always important
Okay.
to have that process. And of course, you need to be monitoring the usage of those
Mm,
licenses as well. I mean, I'd like to think that the cost of license typically or the benefits that you get typically outweigh the cost of the license, but it's not true for everyone, because I might
right.
show interest but then lose interest very very quickly and not use that license at all. So it's also important to make sure you're monitoring the type of automation that people are building. And one way to do that is to ensure that you have a central place where every idea is registered, and that every the progress that your citizen devs are making are being documented,
Mm,
because you're kind of ensuring that they make progress with the sort of a carrot and stick situation, right? You
right.
encourage them maybe because they'll you get bonus points at the end, or maybe get a good rating from their boss. But at the same time,
Mm,
you use a stick to kind of tell them, if I don't see progress, I have to revoke your license, because again,
yep.
like I said, having those licenses cost money if they're not used. And lastly is to build uh, you know, a code review process. You don't want, especially citizen dev, actually, it applies to everything built by professionals or built by citizen devs. You want to make
Right.
sure you have a proper code review process as
Right, right. Interesting. I think we still have a little bit of time. I'll probably continue with the question, Matthew, if that's okay with you.
well. Of course.
Okay, let me just put this up. It says here, some think that citizen dev don't produce many benefits for the organization. From your experience, is this true? I mean, typically, those enterprise, right? You probably want to have a dedicated team that's well
Yeah,
trained to do right. But why would you encourage to open up this citizen dev kind of a scenario? I think that's where the question is heading, Matthew.
sure. So I always believe in sort of a two-prong approach. You need to have sort of a top-down approach. Top-down means you have a central team looking for automation ideas, building automation in a professional manner, and having a team of experts that can then be leveraged by citizen devs when you have a bottom up approach. So
Mm,
bottom up is, your employees are identifying automation opportunities, and you upskill them to build their own automation. Companies that fail to get value from a citizen dev program are typically those that underinvest, because the reality is you don't just
okay.
give people licenses and give them the
I
link
have to
to the
go
training
and do,
course,
right?
yeah, and go and build. No, because oftentimes these employees have a day job. They're
Of
they're
course,
in
of course.
accounts
Yeah.
payable, they're in HR, they're in
And
operations,
procurement,
right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
they need to set aside time to learn, and whenever they get stuck, there has to be someone that they can turn to for help.
Right.
So if you don't invest in maybe those regular clinics, or create like a regular meeting for like a sort of community of practice, then a
Right.
lot of these citizen dev programs will fail. So you do
I
want
see.
to invest in, it's like no pain, no gain, right? You need to
Yeah.
invest
Agree.
to realize benefits.
Mm. That's very good advice. We still have time for perhaps one more question. I would like to
Sure.
perhaps do this one. Let me just project it out. So basically, the question is asking from Celine is that recently there was an announcement between Microsoft and UiPath on collaborating together, right?
Hmm.
So I think the question is asking, what does it mean to us for users of automation? What can we expect, 18 months down the road with this collaboration with Microsoft and UiPath? Can you share a
Yeah.
little bit more?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, UiPath and Microsoft does have a really good partnership. First and foremost, in case you're not aware, our
Mm.
cloud platform actually runs on Microsoft's cloud platform, Azure.
Oh, the Azure.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
So,
fantastic. That's good to
well,
know.
for us, it didn't make sense to reinvent the wheel. Microsoft already has all the industry, best practice
Best practice.
applied to
Yep.
their cloud platform. So we leveraged on Azure to host the UiPath Automation Cloud. At the same time, um, Microsoft has a what they call a co-sell program.
Mm.
They, Microsoft reps can actually sell UiPath,
Oh, okay.
right? So for companies that want to, let's say, look into increasing their consumption of Azure, for example, they can actually buy subscription of UiPath through that committed Azure sort of their commitment to Azure consumption, right?
Yep, makes
And
sense. Yep.
use some of it for UiPath licenses. And
Mm,
thirdly, it's really about us jointly just again advocating automation. I think
mm,
Microsoft's done a tremendous job with their Power Platform to build citizen
right.
devs, right? When I say citizen devs, it's not just about automations. It's like things like Power BI. How do you
Yes,
get
that's
put
correct. Yep.
Power BI in the hands of a finance person so they can build their own reports rather than depend on IT, right?
Yep.
Power Apps for building apps, right? Or Power Automate for building automation as well. So
Mm,
we do have a really good partnerships, and I think Microsoft also acknowledges the fact that UiPath has a business automation platform that can be leveraged for more complex type of automation.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Mhm.
So thanks for that, Matthew. Thank you for answering all those challenging questions that I'm seeing in the Q&A. I hope that helps our audience and participants as well for this webinar.
Mhm.
Again, on behalf of everyone, we want to thank you, Matthew, for really coming here to share with us what's happening in UiPath and how this could be actually helpful to us who are exploring. While having said that, we are running out of time already. I'm just quickly sharing the next session that is coming up for the various track. Again, Matthew, thank you so much. We are grateful to have you here today. We hope
My
to see you
pleasure.
again soon in our next session of webinar. Thank you, Matthew.
Okay.